Awesome. So today we have Steph, who is the founder and CEO of OpenVC app, right? And the OpenVC is the name, and I'll drop in the link. It's a phenomenal. Actually, I'm using a product, so I want to put that out there. I love it. But how are you doing, Steph?
Doing great, Imran. Thanks for having me.
Where are you based right now? I want to call that again because I know where you're based, but I think it'll be cool if you call it out where you are.
So I'm actually in China, in the middle of the countryside. We just celebrated the New Year. It's the Year of the Dragon,
Yeah,
and I'm about to spend a couple of weeks here and then travel around the globe a little bit again.
nice, nice. And is it you're there because of business or?
No, no, it's not for business. My wife is from here, so we like spending some time here. It's really chill, great food, great people, family, of course.
Yep.
So we spend a few months per year in China, since very open, and it's super nice.
Nice, nice.
Otherwise, I'm just, we're fully nomad. Yeah, I should probably say that we're nomad. So we spend time mostly in Europe, a little bit in the US, a little bit in Asia when we're not in China.
So when you say, wait, so do you speak the local language? Like, do you speak Mandarin or Cantonese, or even
Uh,
like understand a little bit?
Yeah, now the local language is a Bozhouhua, which is a dialect of Mandarin. Uh, I, I mean, I can order at McDonald's. There's one McDonald's in the whole town, right? One for 6 million people.
Wow.
So I can order there in Chinese, yeah, but that's in Mandarin. I mean, in Bozhouhua, but that's pretty much it. I can swear. I can swear in Bozhouhua actually. But
Nice.
that's pretty much it.
That's the only thing, right? It's people always learn, and even I did. Like when I was learning Russian, so I was like,
Yeah.
oh, what's the word to piss people off?
Yeah.
Anyways, but
Yeah, it's not that you learn it, but it's the only thing you remember, right? Because it's worth remembering. And you need it all the time, especially if you drive around here, you
that's
absolutely need to know how to swear at people. So
I wonder what's the psychology behind that. Not that this is the focus of this podcast, but I'm wondering there has to be some psychology. Like, why do we remember? But that's a question for another day, another time, another show, not even my show. But thank you, Steph, for having this early morning call for you from China, right? And
mm.
before we go deeper, I always start the show by introduction. So if you can introduce yourself, and I want to then specifically talk more about how did you start OpenVC? So you did mention, there was an early other company that you did early on before OpenVC.
hmm
And then how did you grow OpenVC? Like just for people who don't know, OpenVC.App is basically a platform which enables startups to raise money, right? So correct me if I'm wrong. Raise money,
Correct,
connect
correct.
with venture funds, syndicates,
hmm
and it's a pretty strong community. You have like at least I'm saying, but actually more than thousands. There's 5,000 plus
Yeah.
investors. I myself have been a user. I'm not advertising, by the way, the show's not advertised or anything, no sponsorship. I use the product and I've at least received I'm not keeping counts, but I'm sure it's like 50 plus or 100 plus at this point. And a lot of people have also discovered me in some case. So through that app. So it's either direct or indirect affluence is there. But over to you, Steph. Tell me more about how did you start or how did you even get to this stage of the company?
So the honest answer is it's a little bit by accident. I mean, we didn't have this plan when we started. So first, I should say OpenVC is two people, right? My co-founder Lucas is the tech muscle and the tech brains, and I do all the rest.
Mhm.
And we really started this as a side project. Weekend project built a investor database. We wanted it to be open and collaborative. Launched it on Product Hunt, and then it just blew up. And we decided, okay, let's give it a shot. We worked on this for 2 years as a side project still, while because we didn't make any money. And now finally we're full time, and this is the product that you described, and it's a good description of what we're doing. So thank you for that. So that's OpenVC. But the original idea came from way before my first job actually out of business school was at Microsoft, and I worked at their startup accelerator. And at the time, we helped I think it was 10 or 20 startups, I don't remember, by batch. And part of what we did was helping them raise funds. And so we had this beautiful co-working space in Paris downtown, and all the startups, I remember very clearly, all the startups sitting next to each other, all building their own VC list, right? Their own investor list they wanted to reach out to, and on the cap tables. And I was like, why don't we have, a tool that's, instead of doing that separately in silos, we would, you know, join the effort together. So that was the original impulse for OpenVC. That dates back from 2015, maybe. And for a long time, the idea just cooked in my head. Then I did other things, moved to the US, then came back to France, started the first startup that you mentioned, Petri, deep tech startup that didn't work out. But that idea kept, stuck somewhere in the back of my mind. And then eventually I discovered no code tools and I started building my very first version of OpenVC. And that's when I partnered with Lucas, my co-founder, and then the rest, side projects, product hunt, launch, blah blah blah, and now here we are.
So you mentioned a few things. No code, which wasn't a topic on my head, but now it will be. So let's parse that out a little bit. Um, when you started OpenVC, you said you leveraged no code, right? Like,
Oh yeah, time.
what was your, which apps were those? How did you build upon? Because this is the first time, or at least there's so many videos on YouTube that I know of. I myself have built an app on no code, but I haven't seen a lot of folks or have heard in firsthand who have said, "Hey, I built it over there and now I've scaled." Because I'm looking at how OpenVC have grown. It's
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows about it. Other syndicates that I'm talked to, they are part of it.
Yeah,
It's not like, oh, I don't know. It's like, oh yeah, I'm there. And
yeah.
so I'm gonna that would be really helpful.
Okay, so I mean, big news. I mean, OpenVC runs on Airtable, like still today, right? It started as an Airtable database of investors, right?
Mhm.
Um, I built it, put it all my connections, and then I wanted to build a front end for it, so people could access it and they
Mhm.
could edit it because the idea was to make it collaborative. At the time, Software didn't exist, Stacker didn't exist, so there was no easy way to do it, but custom code the front end. And that's when I partnered with Lucas, my co-founder today, who is a tech guy and could build the front end. And so we ended up with a hybrid solution, no code for the database and the automations and the logic, and a custom front end. And it's still the case today. Today, all the user accounts, all the pitch deck hosting, all the investor profiles, everything's hosted on Airtable,
Wow.
and that's the product we have today. And I don't expect that to change in the near future. I think this can scale. We could 10x, and this would still hold. So
And I'm supposedly also thinking like when it comes to cost of operations for OpenVC, it would be scalable there as well, right? Like I don't
yeah,
know, I don't want to go
so
into
yeah,
numbers, but yeah.
yeah, I can. I mean, I can share. I think we pay Airtable at the moment. I think we upgraded to the business plan now, so it's like $49 a month. So, so it's all good, really. No, we're good. So we have a few challenges with maybe like image storage and that stuff,
Yeah.
and we're looking at solutions. But honestly, I mean, the folks at Airtable, I mean, hats off to them because we couldn't have done that without Airtable. And I, it's an amazing product, and I'm just so happy they built what they did because OpenVC wouldn't be there, partly without them.
Yeah, no, then I'm like, wow, this is very encouraging for someone like me who loves to build stuff. So moving a little bit further, right? So when you built the Open VC platform, tell me about like, which I'm really intrigued for. By the way, what I'm doing this podcast of doing my personal branding, I didn't mention to you one-on-one, but I want to even have it on the record. There were a few people I saw, and you were the third person. There's one Akash Gupta I'm aware of. There's one Peter Yang. He does a lot of product, and you were
Yeah.
someone I came across, and I was like, oh my God, I have to do this. He's building in public. It's really helpful. and it can help me grow. It inspired me to do what I'm doing, right? Why I'm posing this question is no, I'm not kissing your ass, Steph, just FYI. But the reason I'm asking this because I saw the result with OpenVC, right? So tell me about how did you even get there, like in terms of growth? What were some challenges or even key hacks that you learned along the way?
Yeah. Okay. So the to some extent, OpenVC is a marketplace. To some
Hmm.
extent, we have demand and supply. We have investors and startups, startups and investors. So you have the typical chicken and egg problem. How do
Hmm.
you, because if you don't have startups, the investors don't come. If you don't invest, startups don't come. So how did we solve that? And this was the very first challenge we had. We knew that from the beginning. So the first thing we did is manually build the initial database, right? So the
Hmm.
investor side, we knew startups would come because they always come for free stuff.
Yeah.
So we start putting up, I mean, I put up my own investor contacts there. And then I manually reached out to and on manually onboarded the first, I don't know, I don't remember, but like hundreds of investors myself, right, on OpenVC. And then what happened is a lot of investors that I had also manually added without, asking them, the data was incorrect. And I got a lot of pissed off emails from investors saying, hey, I see my name here, I see my photo, but what you're saying is wrong. And then I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Here's a link. You can claim the profile and fix it yourself. And this
Hmm.
is really how we got things off the ground. So we just put a critical mass of information
Hmm.
so people would notice and get interest. And then a lot of stuff was wrong, which we knew. I mean, not on purpose, but it was
Yeah, yeah.
incorrect or outdated. But we made it very easy for people to fix it, and we embraced their complaints as a mark of interest. And after that, so that was the first step. That was the very first hack. And then the second hack was just psychological, because if investor A is on the platform and investor B sees that, now they're,
Yeah.
hey, this guy is there, not me. I want to be there. And they don't
Yeah.
even know why. If I don't know what they're going to get from the platform, if they don't care, it's just, I need to be where everybody is type of mentality, which is very, VC like. And so, how the industry is.
Yeah.
And so this was the second thing. And we grew a lot from, hey, I just want to be there because I have to be there for my brand. And eventually, what happens is, okay, now people start receiving deals. They start seeing the value of the deal flow. They start understanding what we're doing, which is, we curate the deal flow. As an
Hmm.
investor, you're not going to be spammed, right? We filter what you receive. Also, we make it super easy to reply. It's not
Yeah.
awkward. We protect your email address. It's not going to be exposed. So tons and tons and tons of things in the product that make it so much better than the normal investor experience.
Hmm.
And now they're coming back for more. Right. But initially, honestly, they don't come to us for the deal flow because they think they have too much already.
Yeah.
But then suddenly they realize, oh, actually, there's all that good stuff that I dismissed initially, but now
Hmm.
I'm enjoying it. So guess what? I'm gonna come back for more. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's like how we market it and how we retain people are two different things with two different angles because they just respond differently to those uh, stimulations.
No, no, actually, I will concur with you on this one that the psychological factor does has a lot of effect, right? Like when like think of this, the investors mostly when they see, oh, it's backed by Sam Altman. I have to get that deal,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and you see that a lot in the SPV space that how it's advertised, sadly, right? I'm not
yeah.
trying to, I'm just addressing the
That's
obvious.
okay.
But with the startups, I do feel that there is this hunch, right? Like when you build your platform, it's also like startups are trying to raise, it's really hard to break the noise. They all raise so many
Mm,
deals. So how do you attract them, right? So when it comes to the startup side, how did you attract those? Like the startups came to you because you have the investor list. Investors are
correct.
like, I gotta have more, like, doesn't hurt to have more deal flow. Makes sense. What I'm trying to understand is like how did it help startups to achieve or connect? Because there are other tools out there as well angel deck or something like that, right?
Oh, many, many, many.
Yeah. So how were you able to tackle that approach, like the deal source side?
Okay. So, first, yes, there are many competitors, alternatives, and what I've noticed is that in the 3 years I've been doing that, there has been a bunch more created and a bunch more that disappeared. And part of the reason is this is not a really good business to be in. If we
Mhm.
want to talk the business side of things, your clients are startups and they die. First, they don't have a lot of cash and then they die
Yeah.
quick. So you have terrible, lifetime value of customers, a terrible willingness to pay. You cannot charge a lot. Um, a lot of startups that you want to help, actually, they're not fundable. A lot of people
Yeah.
want to raise, but they're actually, so a lot of people, if you want to do things right, you should refuse them or you should let them know they're not ready. So
Hmm.
it's not nice and you're not going to make friends. I receive one or two, hate emails per month, something like that. So yeah. So it's you're better off building another CRM, honestly, if you want
Yeah.
to make money than doing what I'm doing. So that's the first thing. And so but the reason it worked out with startups is we provided a lot of value for free. I'm a founder, right? I've
Hmm.
been around founders for 8 years now.
Yeah.
Same with my co-founder. He's also a founder, serial founder. And so we understand what honestly, I just understand my demographic super well. I understand what they want, so I can build a lot of free tools. I can build a lot of free content that's going to create a lot of value.
Yeah.
And and then after that, they share it. They share it. They talk about it. They recommend it. I mean, at this point, I think, depending on the months, but 35% of
Hmm.
our founders come from word of mouth, right? It's our first channel, so to say. So So that's it. So we have the investor list is free to use, the CRM is free to use, the pitch deck hosting is free to use. Um, we don't charge for any of that. And honestly, I mean, I know the product is good, but I also know if I charge for everything, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have 10% of that traffic. But that's just how I believe that's how if you want to play this game, that's how you should play it, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So we do that, and then we're very active on social media, Twitter and LinkedIn, tremendously helpful. It took a bit of time to figure out, how to get this right, but now I think we're doing okay. We've done a bit of SEO. We have some really good blog posts and content, um, and the product in itself, an investor database. It's something people search for because they're gonna Google an investor name, and maybe they're going to end up on Crunchbase, or maybe they're going to
Yeah.
end up on OpenVC because we have unique, fresh data, and sometimes we come on top, depending on the
Hmm.
investors.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is it, right? A lot of free stuff that brings value. It's not just, I mean, for example, we did Open Deck, right? It's
Hmm.
an open database of pitch decks. Like there are
Yes.
many, but not just pitch decks, actually the slides. So you can
Hmm.
say, hey, because I've been building pitch decks for a long time. And I know I want to build a market slide. I want to build a team slide. So what would be super helpful is I want to click market and see 100 market slides side by side to capture and steal the best ideas. And there is no tool that does it today
Yeah.
except for Open Deck, right? So we built that. It's free. You don't even need to sign up, and you can use it on OpenVC. And we've done that model of providing high value free tools for specific pain points of the founder journey, again and again and again. And then this is stuff that you can launch on product hunts. You can share on Twitter. People love it, and maybe they even don't even know us for the OpenVC. They know us for another stuff initially, but
Yeah.
eventually, it's part of the ecosystem, and that's how we get people to know about us.
And the other tools I've also seen is you have the LP Navigator, right? And you also
Mm-hmm.
have fundability. Is that within your scope or is like partners or this is all OpenVC?
So Fundability is us. Fundability, the app, is now fully integrated into OpenVC. It was a
Nice.
separate, toy for a long
Yeah.
time, but eventually, so that's how we start. We start as a separate domain and separate toy, and then once we're confident with the concept, we embed it into OpenVC. So now Fundability.App, just for people, it's a test you can take online, 6-7 minutes, and it's gonna tell you how exciting you are for investors. based on your traction, your team, your market, your cap table. So I tell you, hey, you're super hot. Based on the thousands of startups we've seen at OpenVC, you're in top 10%, top 1%, or maybe you're lower. And we're also going to give you all the red flags that you need to fix, broken cap table, unbalanced team, this kind of stuff. LP Navigator is kind of a side project that actually is not ours. It's a partnership we've done with someone else. And we're seeing, trying to get this right because it's not really our core value prop, right? LP, VC stuff is not what we do. But I like the idea. I love the guy. And so we're trying to figure out what we can do here. But it's like 1% of my focus at the moment.
So I just want to ask, so just to recap, so OpenVC is a marketplace for people to, mostly startups and founders and startups to connect with VCs and vice versa,
Correct.
deal flow, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
You have mostly free. When does the pricing comes in? Because I know you have a pricing page. I have this open in front of me, but I want you to
Okay.
talk more about it. Like what sets
Sure.
it apart?
Very easy. You use OpenVC for free. Okay. And if you love it and you find it's valuable and you want all the premium features or the advanced features, you just go premium. So that's the model. It's the exact same model as LinkedIn. Everybody's on LinkedIn for free. I'm on LinkedIn. You're on LinkedIn. I don't pay for it. I don't know about you. Do you pay for LinkedIn?
Yeah, I pay, I
Okay,
pay for like
great. So it'd be
$200 a
a
year.
okay. So you'd be a great customer for OpenVC, right? Because if you find that the product is valuable and you want more analytics, more filters, more stuff
Yeah.
like that, then you just upgrade. So it's the same model. And the idea for us, and that was, by the way, this was something from day one that we wanted. We wanted to have an option for founders who don't have money to raise. This was very important as part of our mission. And so you're a founder, you don't have any money to spend on this. You can use 99% of OpenVC for free, right? And then if you find it's valuable and or if you can afford it, you upgrade because it's a nicer experience and you have a few more, whistles and bells that makes your fundraising easier. And then you have OpenVC Premium and you have all the good stuff. But that's basically it. And so OpenVC Premium, you have, as I mentioned, advanced features. You have more outreach per day.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of content, pitch deck templates, AI pitch deck reviews. We increased now the perks, $750,000 of software discounts, Airtable, HubSpot, all that stuff, and a lot of exclusive ones we've negotiated as well. So that's OpenVC Premium. But again, most people, sadly use OpenVC for free, but actually I'm very happy about it because, they raise, they succeed, or maybe they don't raise, but they learn because we have a lot of knowledge around the product and they learn and they grow as founders. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. And then I think when you become part of their cycle as well, then, you have this future growth that you can
Yeah.
build upon as
Yeah.
well. So
Absolutely.
changing the conversation a little bit. So we talked more about how you built OpenVC, how it's helping the both sides of the market for startups and venture capital. I want to shift more towards what are you seeing? I know you're not a VC. We talked about that. You're not an investor, but
Yeah.
you are in this space. Okay. You are at least observant,
Yeah,
minimum.
absolutely.
That's a
Absolutely.
minimum thing that you probably do more. I'm 100%
Yeah.
sure. So what are you seeing now? I see a lot of AI startups propping in here and there. I know AI is a big subject, so I want to talk to you as well. I had a conversation with another person, Mo. He's SVP at Wells Fargo Bank, and he was like, AI is more of a tool. It's not like a product, it's a tool. And I believe in that. What are you seeing in terms of when you see startups propping up here and there, AI? How many of them are really real? How many of them are BSing their way? And how many of them are really solving a problem? And I'm just asking your opinion because you probably have. I don't know if you see the deals, but
Yeah. So what we see is, we see, so as you said, we're like a fund that doesn't invest, right? We see the top of funnel. So every deal that gets sent to an angel or an accelerator or a fund, we're gonna see the deck, we're gonna see the
Mhm.
details, we're gonna see the profile of the company. We're not in the conversations, right? Because that's our job. We're not a middleman.
Yeah.
So we don't brokerage the relationship. We
Mhm.
connect and we get out of the way. So yeah, we see tons of AI startups, that's for sure. And I'm starting to see reboots. So, AI native CRM, AI native dating app, AI native. So basically any concept that used to exist,
Yeah.
Airbnb, guess what? We have
Yeah.
an AI Airbnb, Uber, same thing. So everybody's like spinning AI on top of stuff, which, frankly, it's not necessarily a bad idea.
Yeah.
Maybe there are some others that can benefit from it. Maybe you're gonna build, I mean, I'm not judging. We've
Yeah.
seen
Yeah.
tons of stuff. You don't know what's gonna work, so we have to be humble here. Um, so yeah, you see that a lot. And of course, there's a difference between people building AI software applications, AI infrastructure. What's always getting on my nerves is those people, we see that on OpenVC from time to time, doing keyword stuffing, you know, metaverse, blockchain, and now they learned about AI, so they add AI on top. They're like, man, why did you do that? Why? I
How,
mean,
have you
it's
seen a
just
startup which would say, I'm building an metaverse powered by AI, which will be stored in a blockchain?
yeah, yeah. I see that. I mean, 3 times a week.
Oh, yeah.
It's a bit sad, and that's one of those things with this job. I do a
Yeah.
lot of, I mean, I don't know, education, you could
Hmm.
say, because we realized very early you cannot just connect people to investors. Because if you do
Yeah.
that, you send them to like jump off a cliff, right? A lot of
Hmm.
people need a bit of training, a bit of education, a bit of knowledge to help them
Yeah.
understand how this works. A lot of people, the first time they do that, they've
Hmm.
never done it before. They don't get the codes. They don't get how this works. They don't have the playbook.
Yeah.
So we try to teach. The problem is it's a stream. It's a continuous stream of new founders, and you have to teach again and again and again.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people they you know they don't, and also some people don't listen. Like you tell them, and they don't listen. You tell them write a short cold email because
Yeah.
anybody get time for that, and you need to be mindful of investors' time. Say yeah, you're right, and then the cold email is like 3,000 characters. Like what did I tell you? So yeah, there's a bit of that frustration here. Um, but yeah, so AI, we see a bunch of those, definitely more for the past year. Web3 is going down, clearly, but I think it's a surprise for nobody. It's been, downhill for more than a year now, and AI has kind of, how to say, siphoned the
Yeah.
money that would go into Web3 into AI. So
I just came up with an idea. Maybe you probably should be doing it, but trends. I think this might be interesting. What are you seeing? Annual report, quarterly report about
oh, yeah,
trends would be
I'd love
interesting
to do that.
because
Yeah.
because if you think about it, you have not only the heap of a lot of startups coming to you, you can be the guiding light for a lot of entrepreneurs. Like, hey, this is what you're saying. This is getting crowded. Like it will have your take on it. But no, this is very interesting because the reason I wanted to ask you this is because I think a lot of people are also interested that what's going on in the space. You mostly have someone like Crunchbase or some big tech VC, which I will not say they're biased, but there's chances that they would be biased because, of course, they want to, push certain industry faster and make it more robust. Um, Going back to your journey of OpenVC and then the trends we talked about, I want to talk about branding, right? So, Steph,
Hmm.
like you do a lot of LinkedIn posting. You have started building your brand. Your brand itself is now very stronger. Can you help out even founders because you're building in public, if I get this right, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And building in public is something what I learned from you, as I mentioned as well, right? Like I've seen it, but I think sometimes it just takes one person to make you click.
Hmm.
Talk the importance for founders for building in public because it benefits you a lot, right? So,
Yeah. For me, it was helpful. I think there are many benefits. There are a few downsides too.
mhm.
So we can cover that now. Okay. So first, when you say build in public, what does that mean? Usually it means that you're going to be active on social media and share the journey. So it might mean, sharing. So what I've done, for example, sometimes I share our numbers. I say, hey, we have reached, for example, recently 42% reply rate on average for the month of January. So this is great. It means founders on OpenVC receive a lot of replies from investors, much more than a typical channel. This number was 30% 6 months ago, which I also shared at the time because it was a milestone for us. So people can see your progress and they like that and they feel they're part of the journey. Sometimes I share about the new features. I ask you, hey, which features do you want us to build? Or I share screenshots like this is the mockups, this is coming soon. Can you share some feedback? What features do you want? Recently for the CRM, we consulted a lot people's opinion on LinkedIn and Twitter. So yeah, these are many ways you can build in public. Sometimes I share even emails I have with angry customers
Yeah.
or angry users. Of course I hide the names, but
Yeah.
I'm very, very transparent about how we're gonna handle that request. And sometimes people disagree with me, which can be a downside because nobody likes to be contradicted, but that's part of the game. So I say, hey, look, this guy has been an asshole. This is the emails we've had. I think I'm going to kick him out of the platform. And some people tell me, no, you're the asshole uh, because you're wrong for some reason.
Yeah.
And you listen, you learn. So you have. I think if you play the build in public game, it takes some consistency. You cannot be open sometimes and close others. You have to be transparent. You have to take the wins and the losses. So that's one thing. It's not always going to go your way. So that's I think an important part of it. And sometimes I don't build in public. So there are some stuff I choose not to share also. I don't communicate about that, but I can say it here. I think it's not always good to share everything. Some stuff, a lot of stuff we're experimenting, but it's too it's too early, uncertain. So I'd rather just, give myself more time. A lot of stuff I build in public is stuff actually that has been ready for a month, and I've just been waiting for the right time to share, to gather enough evidence, to be confident enough. So there's always a bit of a lag time between, when I do stuff and when I share. Not always, but sometimes. But sometimes, building public actually is earlier than when we're building because we want to gather insights. So building in public actually is also a way to do user research. We changed our logo recently. We put up a few logos on. We had our own opinion which one we wanted, and we ran it through people just to get a sense of And at the end of the day, you do what you consider is right, but that's just an extra valuable data points that you can take into account. But you don't let people. I don't let people's opinion dictate what we do, but I try to use it as a additional data points in our journey to guide and most importantly the comments. Sometimes if you read all the comments, most of the time it's just nice random stuff, and sometimes you have a brilliant one like, man, you should do that. I'm like, oh, that's brilliant, we should do that. That's you really find how do you say, nuggets of wisdom or brilliant stuff. So building public has been great for us, as long as your target is on the social media. And it's our case. So for us, it works well. But if you're selling to restaurant owners, I doubt there's a lot of them on Twitter.
Like for them would be challenging, right? If you go to a restaurant owner, oh, today I launched a new burger, they'll be like, great.
Yeah.
Better than McDonald's. Like, but I'm just thinking, like, what would that be? And you're right. What I'm trying to say is you're 100% right. I think it only applies to certain products, businesses as well. What are the downsides of building in public? Because everybody keeps sharing. This is what I notice, and I'm guilty of that as well. I got my first 1,000 plays after my third episode, which actually got the Apple guy got in. So I was like, very excited. And then after that, my plays are way down. And I even saw they're single digit. They're single digit, but now they're growing in YouTube, and I have no idea why. Sometimes I get 1,000, sometimes I get 400. One got 4 views, but I'm seeing this trend going to like 4 digits. I'm like, okay, I'm doing something. Something's working, but I don't choose to share. Well, I did choose to share right now because I don't know.
Yeah.
You were making me comfortable to share it. What are the downsides of building in public in this case, right? Because everybody keeps sharing, happy-go-lucky, right? Like
Yeah.
the reality is offset a bit.
Look, I think it's back to what we said earlier. If you share, you have to be consistent
Yep.
because otherwise people notice. And so if things don't go the way you want, do you want to share that? And it's not just ego. There's also a business reason. As long so for you see a lot of people on Twitter share their MRR, their revenue numbers,
Yeah.
right? They say, hey, we're making 8K, 9K, 10K. It's not
Yeah.
just to show off. It's not just to show off. It actually drives sales.
Yeah.
When you say, hey, we're growing, and you show the numbers and you do try, they say, oh, other people are buying, so the product must be good, so I'm gonna buy it too. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the good side. The downside is that if 1 month it's going down, are you going to share it? And if you don't, then it's kind of you betraying your audience and you don't feel good about it. But also if you do, then you create doubts. And why people stop buying? Oh, the product is not that good. So because you can make and break your own image. And so and now actually there's a trend. I don't know if you noticed that very recently. People who used to share their revenue numbers
Yeah.
stopped doing it. And they're open about it because they still do the build it public somehow, trying to save face. That, hey, I've shared my revenue numbers for a long time, but now the revenue stopped growing as fast and I'm not comfortable sharing, so I'm just gonna
Yeah.
stop sharing it. And a few people have done that because it just gives them a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Um, and the same way, we're a startup. We're a very early stage, although now we're, profitable and growing and all that stuff, but we're still at day one. And a lot of stuff is still like that, right? It's not a straight line. And I think even for our own mental health and well-being, it's not good to, that's why I'd rather share about features and stuff that I can control than about revenue or traffic numbers,
Yeah.
which are hard to interpret. You need some context. I'll give you an example. November, we had a great, great month. December, we did half of that. Well, but December is December, right? People celebrate. And November, you
Yeah.
have Black Friday. And so, when you take two steps back, you understand the reason. But you cannot have this level of accuracy or context on social media. So I guess, yeah, that's the downside. Another downside is just if you want to have a big marketing launch, somehow
Yeah.
maybe you want to keep some stuff hidden. You want to control. So something I realized recently that I've done for a long time is I have my product roadmap and I have my marketing roadmap, and
Yeah.
they're actually not tied at all. So we're gonna ship a new feature, and maybe I'm going to announce it 2 months later. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
I control because users will maybe notice and use it. Great,
Hmm.
and everybody else on social media will discover it when I announce it, and that's fine. And I
Yeah.
control my message, I control my time.
Yeah.
So I guess it's not building public or not. I think building public in general is great and you should
Yeah.
embrace it. You should just not dive headfirst and be completely um you have to have some be a bit sophisticated about it and understand what you're comfortable sharing or not, the long-term implications, the kind of commitments you take towards your audience, and how that makes you feel. Um, and so, yeah, find the right level of sharing. You don't want to overshare and put yourself in a hot seat down the road.
Would you say, because you were touching on some really good points, right? Like sharing their companies, I know they're like 100,000, 1 million ARR, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Even when they companies are employing, they're like, we are at $100 million run rate. And it's like, is it because you made that money last month? So you're like, oh, or is it like, what was the story? And the reason I'm asking you, I've seen a lot of, I have to call it out, like on LinkedIn, a lot of people post. They're also LinkedIn voice, and I'm surprised they would always share percent. I get it, you don't want to share the revenue. But what does percent mean? Did you make $100
Yeah.
last month and now this month you made $1,000, so it's
Yeah.
10x? Or
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
well, the reason I'm asking is because you're touching on something which I would love for you to elaborate is the trust factor. That's how you build trust, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
how would
Absolutely. And and trust for me is consistency, right? Because trust is not a dot, it's a line, right? It's several dots put next to each other, and it paints a picture of someone. And so, yeah, you want to have that consistency, and it means that you make the right choices at the beginning about, for example, what you're going to share or not. Yes, and by the way, it's so funny what you just said about the percentage, because founders do the same on pitch decks, right?
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is actually one of my pet peeves that I teach in my pitch deck webinars. Um, when you show the traction slide, right? Don't say growing 200% month over month. If you've been
Oh,
growing from, $10 to $40, whatever, don't bullshit people, right? Or because at worst, it means that you're dishonest and
yeah.
you're a scammer, right? And at best, it means that you're so dumb you don't even realize how dumb this is.
Yeah.
So it's not a good picture either way. You don't want that. You don't want to be a crook, and you don't want to be a naive person in the eyes of an investor. And
Yeah.
it's the same on social media. Maybe people pay less attention, maybe they care less, but still, you don't want that. I try, you try to, but that's more of like life
Yeah.
general rule. You want to be a character that can be trusted, and that you can look yourself in the mirror and know that you didn't, bullshit people at some point. So
No, no, this is a good one because I learned my way through one of my last startup where we were like, oh, we got this many views, and we were touting, which was the fact, like so 5 million views, but how many users is that, right? And when I showed to the investor, oh, it's 100,000, but we don't. And he was like, dude, why are you saying 5 million? So it was an epiphany. Number one, he was like, why are you saying a bigger number when it's not? So he was
yeah.
like pissed. But then he's like, in 4 months, you have 100,000 users? I'm like, yes. He's like, that's strong. You just offset yourself from 5 million to like this. And he's like, no, just to say this and this more. And that I actually ended up, me getting into room with investors and, closing the deal with them, which was very interesting. So I get your point. I know we're coming out of time mark. This was a very fun talk, actually. And I wanted to also, learn from you as well. And also it's a learning factor in many things. What is some, I would say, piece of advice or something that you can give venture capitalists first and then founders?
Oh,
Like, let's start with VCs first.
okay. So for venture capitalists, I guess at this point in time, it's going to be about data and becoming a data-driven investor. Nobody exactly knows what it means. Nobody's doing it really well. Even, the big firms with a lot of budgets. Everybody's trying to figuring it out. But just get started. Get started small. Implement a tool, implement a practice, speak with people. Venture capital is going to change in the next 10 years because of how, I mean, it has been and it will still be people driven, but now with an extra layer of AI and data. And I mean, we talked about AI
Yeah.
and bullshit AI, but in that specific case, I
Yeah.
mean, there is a lot of productivity to unlock with AI. There is a lot of, decision making to be enhanced with AI. So, so that's one. I think for investors, you need to lean into that, or you're going to be left on the side of the road very quickly. And I see investors, doubling down on this um, much more than any other trend.
Do you think the mentality of venture capital and investors would change? Like, what I mean by that, one guy told me once, we're all sheeps.
Hmm.
Meaning,
Yep.
if you have Sequoia Capital backing us, like I had really had one a founder who said, "Oh, I have a meeting with the top tier. I don't want to mention that investor, a top tier investor." And I'm like, "Great, if you're gonna go have a meeting with him, I'm not even needed. I'm not even considered. I'm like a small, tiny, maybe a peck of dust that's just born in this VC world." So, and I was like, why? Why is that mentality within VCs? Do you think that will change over the period of time?
I think it has changed already to some extent. I mean, this is something we never discuss. But I mean, 20
Mhm.
years ago, raising funds was even more intro driven, even more ego driven, even more brand driven. Today,
Yes.
you have a bunch of tiny VCs, solo GPs, active angels. They're not even VCs, they're just, very active, very professional angel investors. So there has been the long tail of venture capital has expanded dramatically.
Yeah.
The practices have changed a lot. I feel that today, still intros are king, but you can do decently well with really good cold emails, for example, which was unthinkable 20 years ago. Today, it is accepted by the new generation of investors. You have a lot of investor operators, right? People who, were founders not too long ago,
Yeah.
have had fair success. Today, they're, in their 30s, 40s. Um, they don't have that. Like, this is especially if you go to Europe. A lot of VCs are, typically the path to VC was banking, right? You had to come from big banks to become
Yeah.
a VC. And then you have that's the European model. The American model is more you have to be a successful founder to become a
Yeah.
VC. And you can see like those, French VCs suited up in very fancy offices,
Yeah.
and those American, like, because they're French, guys in sneakers and jeans, in blue jeans, working from Starbucks. And guess what? They're managing the same
Yeah.
amount of AUM. So so I think it has changed, right? It's much more open. There is for sure. We're definitely not there yet, but that's what I keep, because founders, sometimes I see founders or hear founders on social media say, like, this is terrible industry, blah 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 blah. I'm like, man, like 20 years ago, if you're not on Sun Hill Road, like, you would not
Yeah.
raise funds.
Yeah.
There was this rule, that informal rule, that you had to be within 1 hour, the 1 hour rule. You had to be located within 1 hour
Yes.
of the VC office, right, to be considered for investment. Like, and then COVID happened, and then people, cut checks over Zoom calls. And this stayed. I mean, the COVID went, but the practice stayed. And today it's still happening, even though now, I mean, the market's not so great, but the practice, the mindsets have changed. We have a Gen Z VC trend, which is like a newer, um, breed of investors. So I think it has changed already. And now with AI, I'm more referring to a change in tools and,
Hmm.
you know, less vibe investment or hype investment, and more
Yeah.
data driven. And also sourcing, the way you source deal will change, because you can process, for example, why intros? And a
Mhm.
big answer to that is we don't have the bandwidth to process thousands and thousands of inbound
Yeah.
inquiries, right? So we could just go with the intros, because it's a good proxy for quality, and it's pre-filtered, okay? Because people who intro know what we want. But if you have an AI assistant who can pre-screen 1,000 deals per second
Yeah.
and surface the top 10 that make sense for you,
There
then
you
you
go.
can say, okay, look, guess what? We accept. Just, upload your pitch deck, and we'll get back to if it's interesting. But now you can open yourself up, and you can potentially expose yourself to more relevant deals, because these are like, years of man-hour work that
Hmm.
you can now do. So that's what I meant, right? It's gonna be more open, just because technology makes it cheaper to look at bad decks and filter them out, basically.
Yeah, no. And I want to even go back to your point that you were talking about Sand Hill. Like, I remember it was the thing, and probably a little bit has gone less now. But like, if you were not on Sand Hill Road, you're not considered like any good VC. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. And you know what? I didn't get the chance to ask, but I think you did answer like what were the trends that you're looking at. So you're basically talking about the tools that are gonna enable in research,
Yeah.
open sourcing deal, higher
Mhm.
like higher volume of deals that would come in through, and easy to parse through the data so you can make data-driven decisions versus hype, more like,
Yeah.
go in the
Yeah.
market.
And the
What?
big question is gonna be, can you support your decision, inform decision, or can you make the decision with AI? That's where it's going to be a big
Yeah.
cutoff. All the rest, I think everything, sourcing, screening, structuring the data, all of that, I'd say is happening today, right? Within 12
Yeah.
months, it's solved. I see the tools. I know all the guys building that. Many teams across, like, that's trivial. The real question is going to be, can you let AI make the full investment decision? That's
Yeah.
where you have a quantum leap, right? Where the human is out of the loop and you can let the
Yeah,
algorithm choose. That's the big
that's the big.
question, and it's gonna take a few more years, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I hopefully it gets changed for the better in some ways. Um, One thing for founders, right? You have seen we already actually if anybody listens to this whole podcast, they will get a lot from you. But of course, I have to ask because I want to make clips out of these. Um, what would you say to founders? Like we talked about pitch decks, fix that,
Yeah,
don't use hype words, don't use keywords, just be real, don't fake it.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
what else?
I It's one advice now I give all the time, and especially for first-time founders, do your homework. Okay. If you want to raise venture capital, it's a very specific niche that has its own rules and ways of doing things. It has its own playbook. So if you don't learn to swim before you jump into the swimming pool, you're going to drown. And guess what? Everybody else that's playing this game know the rules. So you cannot just, go outside in the winter and be naked and say, hey, why am I cold? Why am I not raising funds? Why am I not getting replies?
Yeah,
Because you're probably doing a million little things wrong. And it's okay. It's just because you don't know. But it's easy to learn. You have all the information online. I mean, there's
yeah,
OpenVC, but there's tons of other resources that are great.
yeah,
We're not the only one out there. And it's free. So it's just a matter of you taking, a weekend to read up on all that stuff and go from, I'm new and I don't know anything to I'm new, but I actually understand how this thing works and I can be successful. And there is a little bit of homework to do,
yeah,
and a lot of founders skip that because, in my experience, unfortunately, a lot of founders just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to raise funds, and they start
yeah,
spamming investors. It's not gonna work. So
yeah.
yeah, do your homework.
No, no, this is and to be honest, like I started my first company in Pakistan, so I didn't know anything. So I went through the whole grind, whatever it
Yeah,
takes. But this is exactly what you're saying is on spot. Do your homework before you even go there. Talk to investors, talk to anyone you know. Don't raise them. And one guy even told me like, ask for advice, you get money. But if you ask for money, you get advice. So always
yeah.
ask for advice. You don't know who's gonna invest, right? But no, thank you, Steph, for giving me your most valuable time, sharing the story about OpenVC, how it has grown and will be growing much further. And I personally love it. I like this tool. As I said, not only I've got good requests, but it actually has helped me to even like I would ask some people who would be like, "Hey, how did you discover me?" They're like, "Oh, I saw you on OpenVC, so I thought to reach you out directly." I'm like, good, but now I have to ask you for your pitch deck. If you can go and they're like, just send me the LinkedIn message. I'm like, okay, great. But I see what they're doing, but I would highly suggest if you do through OpenVC, it's much easier, better, not only for me, I think for other investors as well. But thank you, Steph, for your time.
Thank you, Imran. It was a pleasure.